Welcome to Joy, Love, and Abundance, designed to lift up and explore the people, organizations, and experiences that create a more joyful, loving, and abundant world. Join hosts Rodney-Eric-Lopez, Patrice-Tanaka, and Cyrus-Webb as they share stories and insights that will inform and inspire you. Enjoy today's broadcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Joy, Love, and Abundance here on the radio dial, as well as online through our podcast. I'm Cyrus-Webb, excited to be joined by my friends Patrice-Tanaka and Rodney-Eric-Lopez for today's edition of Joy, Love, and Abundance, hoping that you're able to find something you can use for your own life and also be able to share with the two of you. Rodney, Patrice, always look forward to this time with you guys and being able to share with our audience. I was just sharing with the two of you that our radio audience is really loving this in Mississippi. So definitely want to say thank you to those in Mississippi, in my home state, for enjoying the broadcast. Guys, before we get into today's show, I have to say, it's been 2 months now. Officially, this is show number 8 for us. What has this experience been like for you, Rodney, being a part of this ensemble with Joy, Love, and Abundance?
I couldn't ask Cyrus for just for a great way to end our week. Because we get to have a conversation that's really, empowering and uplifting, and and I think we've said this in previous shows, that it's just as encouraging for us, the three of us talking, and puts fuel in our tank as we hope it is for our listeners. This is no less inspirational for us, sharing our stories and our perspectives, and it's just been wonderful to be able to do this, and can't really it's just amazing that these 2 months have just flown by. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. Patrice, I always give you credit, even though I think you say I don't have to, but I have to, because Joy, Love, and Abundance was your brainchild, and you brought us all together. What has it been like for you over these past 2 months to see how the show has unfolded?
Well, like Rodney, I love ending the week talking about joy, love, and abundance, and sharing all of the different things that have inspired us, each of us, this week, because there's so much good that happens. So if you watch the news, you think that there's only bad news in the world, and that's just not true. And I hope that our program helps to kind of shine a light on a lot of the goodness that is happening.
Yeah. Rodney, it's so funny. I didn't share this with you. I was telling you guys before we began the segment that the great response we're getting from Mississippi, you said something literally that one of the listeners wrote on Facebook, and that is, it's great to hear something positive on the radio. And I think that does kind of give us exactly what all of us hope kind of comes from this, that we can talk about these topics and be able to do it in a way of love, for one, but also and not making everything so dark and so scary, which brings us to the first part of our program. I shared with you guys that the thing that I've been hearing a lot about, and I don't know about you guys, but this word has been, I've been hearing it buzzing all around, and that's compromise. We're hearing it a lot because of what's happening in Washington right now with the COVID relief package and the idea of compromise, not just between Republicans and Democrats, but even between Democrats, right, when it comes to what's going to be there, who's going to get this, who's not going to get this, and how's this person going to feel. And I thought about for myself about compromise, and I thought I'd throw it to you guys and for our audience. Is there a way that we can compromise without losing our joy? And I thought about for myself, and I'm curious to know what you guys think, that for myself, I'm different, and I've said this a lot on this show, in that I do look after others. I believe in looking after others, but I also make sure I find peace for myself. And if I'm in a situation where I feel like by compromising or giving into something takes away my joy, that's where I draw the line. And I'm curious as to the two of you, what are your thoughts about this? Is there a way that you can be able to find compromise with people who maybe may disagree with you or see things differently without losing your joy, or at least in keeping your joy, and not coming away feeling like you're not getting something from the situation?
Well, I think that I'll jump in. I think there's a difference between compromising and being compromised. I think those two things are different. I think it's one thing. I mean, compromise is part of life whenever you are, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a job, whether it's in politics, whether it's in a family. If you are relating to someone else, at some point or another, you're going to have to make compromises because life is never going to go one person's way all the time.
Right.
And I think if it does, something is really wrong and imbalanced with that relationship. Now, that's different, I think, from being compromised. And I think when people say that, I think what they're talking about and referring to is their principles. Is someone's principles being compromised? Are you giving in on something that you know to be wrong? And I think those two things are very different. And I think the difference is, for me, I compromise when I believe that the thing that I'm compromising over is for the greater good of all, whether it's my partner or my work or what have you. If I feel compromised in my principles, then that might be something I need to consider walking away from, because then I can't live with myself afterwards. So I think it's really important to make that distinction.
I love that, Rodney. Patrice, what are your thoughts?
I love the way that you put it, Rodney, because absolutely, I totally agree with you. When you first suggested, let's talk about compromise, it was like, not my favorite word, because, like most people, we want to have things our way, right? Yeah. And usually because I try to come up with what I think is the best solution, if we're talking about a problem. And so a lot of times I think my solution is the best, and I'm going to argue for it to the nth degree. However, I do agree that if I can see and people can show me that another way is for the greater good, that's, when I will say, yeah, okay, I agree. Let's do it that way. I'm not, I'm not that happy, but yes, I can see that if it's for the greater good, I will do that. But Rodney has a really good point, because, doing the right thing for me all the time is critical to my own sense of, integrity and feeling that I'm living the life I want to live. So it's probably impossible for someone to get me to do something that I believe compromises my own principles. So,
I
love that. I love both of them. Oh, I'm sorry.
What?
I just wanted to add. I think Patrice is right on point. Is that we're always going to start from a perspective that our position is the right position, because we live in our minds and our bodies, and we think that our way might be the only way or the best way. But I think we can get to a place of compromise if we believe, and if it can be demonstrated, that everyone around the table is operating in good faith. If everyone is operating in good faith, meaning that they're really willing to be vulnerable and look at the larger good of a situation, then you feel better about maybe compromising some of the things you want, because you know that everybody has got equal skin in the game. If you sense that the other parties in a group don't have that good faith or are holding too much close to the vest, then it becomes harder to make those compromises in life. And then, of course, you lose your joy in making that compromise, because then you feel like not everybody has equal amounts of investment. So we want to also look for, is everybody coming to the table in good faith and with everybody's best interest at heart?
Yeah.
But I have to say, Rodney, to that point, one of the biggest compromises I ever made, I didn't compromise myself. I compromised so that we could move on, because no one was budging from this. When we started my first agency, it involved, kind of a stock that I was given as an employee of our previous firm, and we used that to actually negotiate the buyback of our subsidiary so we could have our own independent PR agency. And the stock that, if I had stayed at my previous company, would have been worth in 3 years a minimum of $700,000. Okay, and so and my partners and I were arguing about, well, 2 other people had lesser shares, but they also wanted to be reimbursed for the shares that they also traded in so that we could buy our company. And this argument went on for like years, and we couldn't sign a shareholder agreement because, our other fellow shareholders did not want to remunerate us for our shares. So finally one day I said, you know what, I cannot argue about this anymore because we have a business to run and to grow. So I'm just going to, I don't care about the money. Just give me the remaining treasury shares, and we'll divide it up proportionately among the 3 of us who are owed shares. And let's just call it a day because we need to move on. So even though other people, not the 3 of us who had shares that we gave up, did not have equal skin in the game. But sometimes you have to compromise so that the group can move on. And I didn't feel compromised because my greater goal was like, let's move forward because I know we can build a great agency, which we did, but we have to get over this. So anyway.
Patrice, that is an interesting point, and I hope our audience gets that as they're thinking about this, because it can be like what we do see in Washington, as Rodney even alluded to. You can become stuck where nothing gets done, and you're not able to move forward. And I hope our audience realizes that yes, I mean, there will be situations, and Rodney, you mentioned something that I don't have to deal with as much. When you're talking about a marriage or, if you're dating, yes, there are going to be compromises that are made, but there is definitely, I love that distinction you made about the difference in compromising and being compromised, because that's where I think it's so important. But it's interesting, and I know it's another show for us to discuss. I think that even opens up another world for our audience too, to ask themselves, if they look at themselves and see they never get what they want, is that the truth for them, or are they allowing themselves to be compromised to the point that they're the ones always lacking just to make someone else feel good? I think that's the thing. So we'd love to know your thoughts, guys. Make sure you do hit us up. Let us know either on the radio side, on the Facebook page for WYAD, or even for those who are tuning in via the podcast. Leave your comments. We'd love to be able to know. For those who are just tuning in, you're listening to Joy, Love, and Abundance. I'm Cyrus-Webb, joined by my friends patrice-tanaka and Rodney-Eric-Lopez. We were just talking about compromise, how we can be able to make compromise. And Patrice, you gave a great example in that, without being able to be compromised, but also finding a way to move forward. With that being said, we try to also share stories that we hope will inspire our audience and to get them to thinking, and hopefully give them something to be inspired by. The 2 of you guys had great stories that you came up with, and I had one that I really was struck with. Patrice, why don't you start? Tell us about what kind of struck your fancy this week.
Yeah. Well, every week, something, more than one thing, but, many wonderful things happen. And when we decided on what we wanted to talk about today, I thought of just something that happened yesterday. My dear friend, Susan Balcom Walton, lost her husband, Mark, a husband of 44 years, some months ago. And she and her family decided, as a way to honor Mark Walton, that they would create, and this happened yesterday, a National Pull a Mark Day, Go First Class with Kindness. Now, Mark Walton was somebody who's a loving husband, father, friend, and a good Samaritan. Perfect strangers he would do amazing acts of kindness for. And he was just that kind of a guy. So they decided to honor him yesterday by inviting everyone and all of their family to pull a mark, Go First Class with Kindness. So everybody did something, and I just think it's such a wonderful idea, and I participated in this. And it's going to be, I think, a national commemoration. But I just marvel at, the things that this man did in his life. And he's not somebody who's famous or that you would know, but he touched the lives of everyone that he met. I mean, he would do things like on a flight, if a family needed to change seats, and what they were offering up was a middle seat. He's the kind of guy who would change seats because in order for that family to sit together. Now, one of the stories they told was that one of my friend Susan's daughters was going to the airport that Mark had always flown out of, and because the ticket counter person saw that her name was Walton, he asked her, "Are you related to Mark Walton?" And she said, "Yes, he was my father." And then he started to tell her all these stories of kindnesses that he gave to, the staff and passengers. And because of her father, and in memory of, what a great guy he was, he switched her ticket to a first class ticket,
Wow.
just as a way of saying thank you and what a great dad, and we really miss him. And he was just a joy to serve, the many times that he flew through our airport. So one man, and he's just so beloved by so many people. Anyway, and I met him once, I think, and I didn't really get to understand the richness of who he was, because he was pretty quiet, and you would never know all of what he was because he was very quiet. But my friend Susan, of course, has suffered quite a loss because he was quite a guy. But she is, making sure that his memory is being appropriately honored. So I just love that. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I think that is a great way, and I love what you said. And it goes to, I think, a bigger thing, Rodney, I believe, and that is that all of us can make a mark. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be a celebrity to make a mark in the world and make an impact.
And it doesn't even always have to be, like, money doesn't even always have to be a legacy, right? We talk about, people's legacies and, what did they leave behind? Did they leave behind riches and wealth and things like that? Are there names on buildings and monuments? And there's nothing wrong with any of that. It's wonderful to honor people with those kinds of things. But what I love about Patrice's story is that, Mark Walton is being honored by a commemoration, inspiring other people to pay it forward with more acts of kindness, because this is part of Mark's legacy is a legacy of kindness. And so what does it mean to pull a mark, one day every year in honor of Mark Walton for all of us within the sphere of his influence to do something kind for other people. I think that's just one of the most beautiful legacies one can leave.
Yeah, such a great thing.
Thank you.
And you had a great story as well, Rodney. What was it that stuck out to you this week?
Oh man, I saw this. This was a story that I saw on the nightly news the other night, and every once in a while I'll see something on the news, and I might be washing dishes or on my phone scrolling on social media, and every once in a while you hear a story that makes you stop and pay attention. And this is a story that did. It was out of Encino, California, and there's a restaurant out there called More Than Waffles, and the proprietor of this restaurant, Ika Taft, had to close in November just because of the downturn in the restaurant community because of the pandemic. And she had to temporarily close, her restaurant back in November and laid off most of the 42 workers she had. So, for any, I'm sure Patrice can identify when you have to lay people off, particularly en masse like that, it hurts. It's painful because the people you work with are family. And so, so this is something she had to do. But what's interesting is someone else in the restaurant community in Encino, a gentleman by the name of Andrew Gruel, who's the executive chef at Slapfish, he created this really cool dish called the community burger. He got the ingredients for the burger donated, and he asked customers to pay any price that you wanted to for this burger, right? So he didn't charge a particular amount. He just says, pay what you want for this burger. And what wound up happening was that the average price that a customer paid for this burger was $30. I mean, for a hamburger, paid $30 for this burger. And as a result, this gentleman's efforts, Andrew Gruel, he's raised over $375,000 and has been able to give individual gifts to 4,000 individuals as a result of this effort. And so coming back to Ika Taft and her employees, because of this effort, she was able to give $1,200 checks to 16 of some of her most neediest workers to help give them some financial relief. And so that's all due to somebody else in the restaurant community kind of stepping up, and the larger community stepping up and saying, okay, we'll overpay for a burger because we know that this is directly affecting people in the restaurant community who've been very hard hit. And so I just love this story because it's entrepreneurship and small business owners needing philanthropy, meeting the needs of the community, and customers really stepping up in a way that that's really beautiful. And so I just thought this was a wonderful story of love and abundance in practical application. I just thought it was a beautiful story.
That is a great story. And I think, once again, showing what we as individuals can do where we are. I mean, I think those kind of stories really, it's so inspiring to me. I mean, just because it reminds us that if you can't do the big stuff, just something like that can make such an impact.
That's right. And think about what it means. You would, if under any other circumstances you said this burger costs $30, I think people would just say this is ridiculous. Why would I ever pay $30 for a burger?
Right.
But I think, when you put the ask out there and say, hey, listen, you're helping members of your community who've been hard hit by this pandemic, whose livelihoods have been severely impacted. People step up, and who knows? I'm sure some folks, maybe it was a stretch for them to pay $30 or $20 for a burger, but they probably did it anyway because they knew it wasn't just to feed themselves, but it was actually helping someone else. So I just think it just shows how the web of community is really interconnected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What a great thing.
Yeah.
Well, the story that stood out to me this week, guys, is one I'm sure everyone now has seen on the news, and that is Dolly Parton receiving her coronavirus vaccine and telling her fans to do the same thing. And what an amazing story. I love Dolly Parton. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, these days. But I did not realize she had made $1 million donation to Vanderbilt University Medical Center when they were beginning their early stages of the vaccine. I did not realize that. And so for her to be able to get it at 75 years old, I thought about my mother who's about to get her first shot at 73 years old. But what was so funny to me about it is that she took her song Jolene and she reworked the lyrics about the vaccine. And so,
that was great.
and so I thought that was such a cool thing. But when she was getting her shot, she looked at the camera and she says, I just want to say to all of you cowards out there, don't be such a chicken squat. Get out there and get your shot. I just thought that was such a good, I think that was such a good thing. And I think, so my hats off to Dolly Parton for one thing, using her platform, because I think we all agree, we all have a platform. And for her to use her platform for something that's so important, because there are a lot of people who have questions. I had questions about my mother taking the vaccine because she has a lot of health issues, and we all have those concerns. But as Dolly Parton says in the lyrics to her new song "Vaccine," that once you're dead, that it's a bit too late.
That's right.
So definitely want to make sure I bring that up.
thank you for bringing that up. And only Dolly Parton can call everyone in America, cowards and chicken squat, and still love her for it. Because she just, everybody knows it's coming from a good place. She's not coming from a mean place, but she is coming from a sincere place. And I'm glad you lifted that story up. I mean, she's a national treasure.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I think, too, again, I hope our audience looks at these individuals. And that's the great thing about all three of our stories again today. Patrice, with your story, Rodney with yours, and even with Dolly Parton, these are all individuals who made a decision and other people rallied around them to be able to make them something amazing. And I think that's the charge for our audience out there. Look for a way that you can be able to bring some joy to others, because if you do it, if you start that road, other people will join you in that, and you'll be amazed at things that you all could do. As we're wrapping up our 8th show, guys, any final thoughts for this week?
Have a great weekend, everyone. And next week.
And continue to just continue to look for ways, continue to look for small ways that you can be a contribution to those around you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Thank you, Patrice and Rodney, for another great show. And we thank you, our audience, both for those tuning in on the radio side in Mississippi, as well as our online audience tuning in via the podcast and the replays. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Joy, Love, and Abundance. May you continue to be able to look for ways to find joy, love, and abundance in your life and to share that with others. Until next time, have a great one.